Hi guys, today I will start another important topic of the same chapter, medical ethics and negligence. Today's topic of discussion is the consent, its importance in the medical practice. Today's topic is perhaps the most important topic in the entire syllabus of forensic medicine because this is the this is the only weapon in your arsenal that will help you from the future legal litigations. Consent goes a long way in safeguarding the doctor's interest in the court of law. So I will start today's class with a story. The story is about a woman, Mary Ramble or Mary Solendorf. She had an abdominal pain. In the year of 1908, she was admitted to a charitable hospital in New York with the complaint of pain abdomen. She was diagnosed to have fibroid uterus. Then she gave consent for laparotomy and examination, but she did not give her consent for removal of any organ. However, in the course of laparotomy, the surgeon decided that it was a malignant tumor, so better be removed. So hysterectomy was done. But unfortunately, there was a complication with the anesthesia, which and she later developed gangrene of one hand and few fingers were amputated. Then she sued the hospital and her ground was that she did not give consent for the surgery. It was an unnecessary operation and he would not have given consent if even if she was informed earlier due to the inherent risks of the operation. Now, now after finishing of the trial, the bench of judges ruled in favor of Mrs. Mary Solemnoff. They said that the hospital needs to pay damages because it was done without consent. And the bench of judges, on behalf of the bench of judges, Judge Benjamin Cardozo wrote the judgment. And what he said, what he said framed the framework of consent in medical practice. Every human being of adult years and sound mind has a right to determine what shall be done with his own body, and the surgeon who performs an operation without the patient's consent commits an assault for which he is liable in damages. This is true except in cases of emergency where the patient is unconscious and where it is necessary to operate before consent can be obtained. With these words, he alone laid down the foundation of the concept of consent, how much it is important. So, from whom you can take a consent? Every human being of adult years and sound mind. That means the person has to be above 18 years of age and should be mentally sound. Then he has the full autonomy over his body. So even before any surgery or any intervention, any procedure, for mere palpation of his of a part, you must take his consent. If you touch a patient's body without his consent, you are committing an assault for which you have to pay damage. What are the exceptions? It is an emergency situation, so no need of consent. You can do the procedure to save life. The patient is unconscious and no one is available to give consent, or there's no time to take consent. It's a life and death situation, so surgery should commence immediately. So with these exceptions, so this is the entire concept of consent, from whom you should take and what are the exceptions. The definition, what is consent? It is a free and voluntary agreement, approval, or permission for compliance of some act, that some act will be done to which you are given permission, approval or agreement. This is voluntary and must be given after understanding of what it is given for and the risks involved. That means the person who is giving the consent, your patient, must understand for what kind of surgery he is giving the consent and what are the risks involved. Okay. Indications are for any medical examination. For even touching a person, you must take consent. Okay. Treatment or investigation for conservative or invasive, both. For any research purpose or experimentation, you are enrolling some human subjects for a research or an experiment. Before going into that, you have to take consent for them. You must explain what is the type of study, what are the steps for through which the subjects will be put, what are the risks and what are the benefits. And in criminal investigation, narcoanalysis. Narcoanalysis means administration of some drugs to bring out the truth. Brain mapping or DNA fingerprinting before because in narcoanalysis you are giving some drugs. For brain mapping or DNA fingerprinting, you are taking for DNA fingerprinting you are taking blood or samples, and for brain mapping you are doing an procedure each. So before doing any procedure, giving any drug or taking any sample, you have to take consent. Okay. Consent, because the same thing, without consent, if you examine a person, treat it or operate, it's an assault, even if it's done in good faith. Doctor, however, even if you take consent but the consent is incomplete, the doctor does not give the proper information to the patient before taking the consent, that is also a crime. It's a negligence. So if you don't take consent, you are guilty of assault. If you take an improper, invalid or incomplete consent, you are guilty of negligence. So what are the different types of consent? Consent is mainly of two types, implied and expressed. Expressed consent is again two types, verbal and written. Only a written expressed consent with full disclosure is legally valid consent. It is the consent which is given for the routine practice. That is, you are given emergency duty in your hospital. A person has come, he has suffered a minor fall in the road. There's an abrasion over one knee. Now he wants to take first aid. After giving the first aid, you are saying that now I will administer tetanus toxoid. He doesn't say anything, but he moves towards you, pulls up his left sleeve, and that means he is agreeing to take the injection in his left arm. That's why he is pulling up the left sleeve. This is an implied consent. He is not expressing it through words, but he is implying through his actions that he is giving his consent. Or someone calls you to his house, he has made a phone call and told you, doctor, please come to my house and examine my father. So when you reach the house, you can directly enter the patient's room and start examining, because the call itself, it's a consent. And in emergency situation, when patient party has rushed the patient into the family, the patient is severely injured and is moribund, and they are saying, doctor, do whatever you need to do to save him. So that is consent, implied consent. Nothing is written, but they have given you consent to do whatever is needed to save the patient. Then will come the informed consent. Informed means the patient has to receive complete information. It is an understanding by the patient about nature of his condition, what is the disease or what is the problem, the nature of the proposed treatment. For example, the patient has come with a pain abdomen and your diagnosis is acute cholecystitis. So first, the patient has to be made appraised of the situation, that this is, you are suffering from an acute cholecystitis and there's a stone. The stone is blocking the neck of the gallbladder down and there's an inflammation inside. What is the nature of the proposed treatment that you are proposing to undergo? That the proposed treatment is laparoscopic cholecystectomy. There will be 4 holes will be made in the abdomen, and through which instruments and camera will be put. The gallbladder will be dissected and it will be in, and with the stone inside, the entire gallbladder will be removed. What is the expectation of the recommended treatment and likelihood of success? Are you that the expectation is with the gallbladder removed in after full, that is expected to make a full recovery, there will be no more abdominal pain. However, a little bit of indigestion is expected. Likelihood of success is more than 90%. Details of the alternate course of treatment. Alternate course of treatment is, if you don't agree with the surgery, we can go for a conservative treatment with antibiotics and ursodeoxycholic acid. However, the likelihood of success is very less. Risks of, what are the risks of the surgery? The risk of the surgery is, uh, there can be inflammation, peritonitis, leakage of bile into the abdomen, or misplace of the stone in the abdomen, etc. etc. These are the risks, inherent risk of the surgery. There can be, for any surgery, there are inherent risk of hemorrhage, infection, etc. So this is how an informed consent should be treated. First, explain the nature of the disease, then what is the treatment you are proposing, what do you expect, what is the likely outcome of the treatment, what if he does not opt for this course of treatment, what is the alternative, and what is the relative risk and benefit of the proposed line of treatment and the alternate. So after disclosing everything, the patient knows about the disease, knows about the treatment, what is the benefit of the treatment, what is the alternative, what are the risks. He is now fully appraised of the situation and he can make an informed decision to whether give his consent or refusal to the treatment. If he gives his consent, then it is called informed consent. If he refuses, that is called informed refusal. Okay. You have to disclose about the potential risk of not receiving the treatment, that there will be suppuration, collection of pus, and eventually the gallbladder can burst, that will lead to peritonitis. Relative chances of success or failure of receiving treatment, and inherent risk of that. As I said, for any surgery, there is inherent risk of hemorrhage and infection. All disclosure must be made in the language that the patient understands. A patient has come from a rural West Bengal and he only language he knows is Bengali, but you being a doctor and you have taken the consent in English. You have told everything in English. You have recited the disease, the complications, the surgery, the risk, benefit, everything in fluent English. And after that, you tell him sign here. Now, whatever you might have said everything in Hebrew or French or German or Latin, it all sounds same to the patient. He doesn't know anything else other than Bengali. So it is imperative that you take the consent in patient's own vernacular. And physicians have a legal, moral, and ethical duty to provide all information that enables the patient to make an informed decision to accept or reject the treatment. Okay. Now there's a theory or a concept of extension doctrine. Extension doctrine means here in the consent itself there is a room for extension of the procedure. Okay. For example, patient has come with acute abdominal pain. With the investigations and USG, you are still the scenario is not clear. So from the patient, you can take a consent of laparotomy, and if during the course of laparotomy, you can also take the consent for a appendicectomy, as appendix is a vestigial organ and can cause abdominal pain, and in any case if you are opening the abdomen, then you can remove the appendix also. So there is a room for extension of the procedure, and that is to be mentioned in the consent itself, that if the need be and doctor decide that it is safe and prudent enough to remove the appendix, he can do so. However, it is not applicable to non-essential procedure. Okay. As appendix can be a cause of abdominal pain and a vestigial organ, you can remove that. But other than that, uh, for non-essential procedure, this is not valid. Paternalism. Paternalism is a factor that leads to incomplete and invalid informed consent. In many situations, paternalism means that the doctor himself feels that the patient is not capable enough to decide about the surgery or decide about his own treatment, that the patient is from a small village, he is illiterate, so he doesn't know basic science, so let alone medicine. I am a doctor, I know better, I know what should be done. So this is called paternalism, that the doctor just feels that he is an illiterate, he doesn't know anything, he marches into the ward telling you get ready tomorrow, there will be a surgery. If the patient asks, doctor, what surgery? Then the doctor stalls. Who is doctor? You or me? I am a doctor. I know better. I know what should be done. You just get ready for the surgery. So paternalism is abuse of medical knowledge so as to which distorts the doctor-patient relationship in such a way that the patient is deprived of his autonomy, that the patient has an autonomy over his body, but you are not allowing him to exercise his right or of his ability to make a rational choice. Doctor does not disclose the nature of illness and proposed treatment, but proceeds with whatever he feels like. That is called paternalism. Okay. Rules of consent. Rules of consent means this is the these are the factors, or these are the points that you must remember before taking any consent from a patient or a subject. So consent is always required before any medico-legal examination. Medico-legal examination means a person has suffered an injury, any type of injury, can be a road traffic accident or a fall in the bathroom. Any injury is a medico-legal case. So after injury, you are examining the patient, you need to take consent. For any routine medical examination, consent should be taken, but that is usually an implied consent or a verbal consent. But before any medical legal examination, you must take a written consent. or a sexual assault victim or accused or any age estimation, for all of these a written consent is taken. It should be free, voluntary, clear, intelligent, informed, direct, and personal. These are the characters of a valid consent. It is free and voluntary. The patient or subject is not coerced or forced to give the consent. It is clear in language, in the own vernacular, intelligent and informed with all the relevant informations, direct and personal. Direct and personal means the doctor has to discuss this with the patient one to one directly. No fraud, misrepresentation, undue influence, or compulsion. Express consent should always be taken before any procedure. It should be taken in the presence of a disinterested third party who will also sign as a witness. Also inform the nature, consequences, and the risks. When the diagnosis is not clear, the patient should take an open consent that I am not sure what is causing this acute abdomen. These are the possibilities. So I will do a laparotomy, and under direct vision, I will diagnose which organ is diseased and what steps should be taken. This is an open consent. Always should inform the patient that he has right to refuse to the examination or procedure. He is free to accept, free to refuse. It's his choice. Always explain that the result of examination may go against him. This is true for a medical legal examination or a patient who is sent to you by the verdict of the court. A court has sent to you a person who is accused of sexual assault or a victim of sexual assault or a subject who is to be examined for impotency or age estimation. You need to disclose that I will examine you and submit the report directly to the court so the findings can go against you or for you in the court of law. Consent is not a defense in a case of professional negligence. When the doctor is accused of a negligence, that there has been a mistake in the procedure, then consent is not a defense. But consent is a very good defense in some cases of civil negligence. In drunkenness, the person should not be examined without his written consent, and the intoxicated person cannot give a valid consent. So when the person is drunk, you are examining him, take a written consent and keep the consent and your examination finding with him, with yourself, before submitting it to the police, because unless you are ordered by the court, you are not legally obligated to submit the report to the police. So if no court order is there, keep the report and consent with you till the person is sober. When the person is sober, then again take a valid informed written consent from him. If then he consents, then you can submit the report to the police, or he can wishes to take the report himself. That's his choice. Okay. But if he is brought by the police with a court order, then you can submit the report directly to the police. In case of a national program, like pulse polio immunization or any national immunization campaign, consent is not necessary, because here the consent is given by the state for benefit of the citizens. When the patient demands to take discharge from the hospital against medical advice, this is called LAMA, leave against medical advice. The patient refuses, that the patient wants discharge right now without completion of the treatment. That's his right, he can take. But before that, take a written declaration that he is leaving hospital against medical advice, that the doctor has explained all the risks of not continuing treatment and the dangers of leaving hospital, but he is doing it on his own and he is waiving any responsibility of the hospital from the future outcome. Take this written declaration with the patient's signature and signature of his next of kin as a witness. Okay. The nature of the illness of the patient should not be disclosed to any third party without consent. As we said, it's a professional secrecy, and consent of one spouse is not necessary for treatment or of surgery of the other. That is, for any surgery of the wife, husband's consent is not necessary, and the same goes for vice versa. Rules of consent. Who discloses? The duty falls upon the patient's attending doctor at the time. Okay, so the patient is supposed to go for surgery on, let's assume, on 15th of June, but on 14th of June the surgeon is on leave. So whoever is on duty on 14th of June should take the consent. Nurse or other provider may only supplement or complement the doctor's specific information. That is, the nurse can help to understand whatever the doctor is saying. He can help as an interpreter, but the doctor must be the one who is explaining the consent. A substitute doctor covering the patient's doctor has an independent obligation to inform the patient about risk, benefit, and alternate of the patient that he or she is to administer. So if the attending doctor is not there, whoever doctor is there, it's his duty to explain the consent. He cannot shun away from his duty with the argument that he is not my patient. Ability to consent, to condition: adult years and mentally sane enough to comprehend the information provided by the doctor. Patients lacking the mental capacity to give the informed consent. Usually, the consent is given by the parent or a legal guardian or spouse. This can be obtained through the same process by the same doctor. Now, there's a concept of loco parentis. Loco parentis is the Latin for in the place of a parent. So, when the parent is absent of a minor patient, but the patient is a student of a school or a boarding, then the principal of that school or superintendent of that hostel has the legal responsibility to act as a parent, and he can give consent for the surgery. Okay, so for medical students, you guys, you are adult, so you will, for you there's no loco parentis, you will give your own consent. But for any minor student, the school principal or hostel superintendent can act as a parent and give consent if the parents are not readily available. Okay. Now there are certain act or laws which in Indian Penal Code you must know in regard to consent. So the section 53 of IPC subsection 1. Here uh, the it says that the person who is accused of a sexual offense, it can be lawfully examined by a registered medical practitioner at the request of an investigating police officer not below the rank of sub inspector, even without his consent. Okay, so section 53 of IPC, it says that. 87. These are the very important. Every doctor should know about these three sections: 87, 88, and 92. So section 87 of IPC says nothing which is not intended to cause death or grievous hurt, and which is not known by the doer to be likely to cause death or grievous hurt, is an offense by reason of any harm which it may cause to any person above 18 years of age who has given consent, whether express or implied, to suffer that harm. That means a person is above 18 years, mentally sane, he has given a consent for an action to which can cause him harm. He knows that, but he has given consent. And the another person who is performed the action does not intend to cause any death or a reverse hurt to the person, then even if any hurt occurs, it is not a crime. So that means two person agrees to participate in a fencing match or a boxing match. One both, so if they're engaged in a fencing match or a boxing match, both has given consent. He, during the course of the match, they can suffer bodily injury, but uh, but the but the other one who has caused that injury is not doing it with the intention of causing death or reverse hurt, and the person who has suffered it before going into the match, he knew that death in hurt is a definite possibility. So this hurt or this injury is not an assault. What about section 88? Section 88 says nothing which is not intended to cause death is an offense to any person for whose benefit it is done in good faith, and who has given consent to suffer that harm or to take the risk. That is, someone has given a consent, a valid consent, to suffer an action which can cause harm. He knows about the risk, but he has given consent because it is done in good faith for his benefit. So this is the IPC which will protect a surgeon. A surgeon is doing the operation as he is giving an incision on the patient's body, but this is done in good faith for his benefit, and the patient has given his consent, knowing fully well about the risks. So here the surgeon is protected. So if you take a valid informed consent, section 88 IPC will protect you and it absolves you for any legal problems. Section 89 IPC, the same thing, nothing which is done good faith for the benefit of a person under 12 years of age or of unsound mind by the consent of the guardian or any person who has lawful charge of the person, that is loco parentis. If a person is under 12 years unsound mind, then the consent is to be taken by the guardian or a loco parentis, then it is not an offense. Section 92, very much important. A person cannot be held liable for an act done in good faith, even if it was done without consent, if the circumstances are such that it is impossible for that person to signify consent, or was incapable of giving consent, or no legal guardian was available to give consent. So section 88 says if you take a valid consent for a person who is above 18 years and no and mentally sane, then a surgeon is safe. And 92 says that if the person is unconscious, cannot give consent, no one else is available in consent, and the act is done in good faith for benefit of that person, then it is not an offense. So this is highly significant in cases of emergency operation on an unconscious person or a conscious child. That is, no legal guardian is available. The person, an injured child was recovered from the road, brought to hospital by the bystander. He is unconscious. No guardian available, no parent available, no loco parentis, nothing, no one. But section 92 IPC gives the surgeon protection. You can proceed with the treatment. Important laws which you must know. Now, consent for MTP, it is written consent of the guardian if the age of the woman is less than 18 years, mentally ill. Otherwise, the pregnant woman alone is sufficient. Professional secrecy must be maintained. And if the girl says that she is above 18 years, it is a sufficient proof of her age. You cannot demand the birth certificate. Consent for prenatal diagnosis. Prenatal diagnosis, it must be done for detection of any congenital abnormalities and not for determination of sex. This declaration must be there in the consent, and this is done only at the places which are registered under the PCPNDT Act. Okay. Sexual act. A valid consent for sexual intercourse can be given by a woman who is aged above 18 years. For a married woman that age is 15, there lies a legal conundrum, because legal age of marriage for girls is again 18 years. Husband cannot be charged even when the act is done without consent. It will be free and voluntary for any girl if she gives, for any girl above 18 years, if she gives the consent for a sexual act, it must be free, voluntary, knowing fully its nature and consequences. Invalid when obtained under unlawful means under threat, impersonation, intoxication, etc. Consent for autopsy. Autopsy are of two types. One is pathological autopsy, which is done for the academic benefit to determine the cause of death when it is unknown. Here the consent should be done from the guardian or legal heir of the deceased. But for medico-legal autopsies, where the bodies are brought by the police to determine the cause of death, no consent is necessary. The doctor can dissect the body and can preserve whichever sample is required. So the procedure is, you explain the whatever information you should be given to the patient, make complete disclosure, then take a signature with date and time, take a signature of a third party as witness, and then put your signature. Okay. So with this class, so thank you very much for your time and patience. Go through the chapter from your book also, and if you have any doubt and query, please feel free to reach, and I will try to help to my best of my ability. Thank you.